New York City was alive that night. The streets pulsed with a kind of energy you can almost feel in your chest. The flashing of cameras, the hurried footsteps of assistants juggling designer bags, the excited murmurs of fans who had camped for hours just to glimpse the city's glitterati. Lights gleamed off skyscrapers, reflecting in the puddles from an earlier drizzle, creating a surreal, cinematic backdrop. But for one woman walking down that red carpet, the glow didn't feel glamorous. It felt like a spotlight was burning right through her, exposing every ounce of tension, every flicker of doubt. That woman was Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, a figure who had once been adored around the world for her poise and charm, now navigating a different kind of battlefield, the world of celebrity perception, where every move is analyzed, judged, and amplified. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Imagine being in her shoes. You've walked past royal palaces, you've been photographed with world leaders, and yet tonight, your biggest challenge isn't protocol, it's Martha Stewart. Yes, Martha Stewart. A woman whose empire is built not on royalty or acting, but on authority, control, and cultural dominance. The irony is almost poetic. Here was Meghan, a woman who once commanded headlines just by existing, now standing in front of one of America's most formidable media icons, pleading for a single photograph. And this wasn't just any photograph. It was a moment of validation, a public acknowledgement in a city where image is currency. The tension was immediate. As Meghan approached Martha, the cameras clicked furiously, capturing every movement. The audience, both present and watching through screens worldwide, could almost feel the electricity in the air. This wasn't a friendly encounter. There was history here, even if only in the form of reputations. Martha Stewart wasn't a celebrity to be charmed easily. She was an institution. To some, she represented a level of perfection, an unwavering control over her image that Meghan, for all her poise, had struggled to maintain since leaving the royal family. Could Meghan bridge the gap tonight? Could she earn the approval of someone who had built an empire on exacting standards? The first few seconds set the tone. Martha looked Meghan over with a glance that seemed casual, almost indifferent, yet somehow penetrating, as if she were reading every intention and weighing it against an invisible scale. Meghan's smile was tight, polite, yet there was an edge of urgency beneath it. She extended a hand, a gesture meant to be friendly, collaborative, maybe even conciliatory. But Martha's response was measured, deliberate, the kind of response that made everyone watching wonder, is this about a photo, or is it something deeper? Social media had already begun its quiet storm. Even before cameras fully captured the moment, fans and critics alike were speculating. Will she get the photo? Why is Martha looking so serious? Is Meghan overstepping? The internet thrives on tension, and this scene had it in spades. Every camera angle, every facial expression, every pause in the interaction was being dissected in real time. The narrative had begun to take shape before a single word was spoken aloud. And for Meghan, every second counted. One misstep could turn a simple red carpet photo into a headline that would follow her for weeks. But let's pause here for a moment. Why does this matter so much? Why would the world care if Meghan Markle and Martha Stewart have a tense red carpet exchange? The answer lies in what each represents. Meghan is a symbol of modern royalty, a bridge between celebrity culture and historic institutions, a woman whose every action has been scrutinized for years. Martha, on the other hand, is a symbol of cultivated authority, of a carefully constructed persona that has survived decades in a fickle media landscape. When these two worlds collide, it's more than just a celebrity moment. It's a clash of power, perception, and ego. It's a reminder that even the most polished public figures can find themselves vulnerable under the unrelenting gaze of cameras, fans, and critics. As Meghan reached closer, the crowd leaned in, cameras poised, breaths held. And then came the moment, the words, sharp and deliberate, that would ignite a media frenzy. Get out of here. Yes, Martha Stewart, in her unmistakably firm tone, told Meghan Markle to leave. No politeness, no hesitation, just a command that seemed to slice through the glamour and glitz like a knife. For a split second, time seemed to freeze. The flash of cameras captured every reaction. Meghan's wide-eyed shock, the subtle shift in body posture, the tight pursing of lips. The world was witnessing a red carpet moment that would be replayed endlessly, dissected for its subtext, analyzed for what it revealed about power, celebrity, and the human ego. It wasn't just the words themselves that mattered. It was the context, the delivery, the pause before they were spoken. This was a woman accustomed to respect and obedience, using every ounce of her authority to assert control over a situation that wasn't hers to manage, but she made it hers anyway. And Meghan? She was forced into the role of supplicant, someone seeking approval in a public arena where approval was no longer guaranteed. Could anyone watching truly understand the mix of emotions in that moment? The anxiety, the embarrassment, the flicker of indignation, all wrapped into a single heartbeat of time. And yet, Meghan didn't leave immediately. There was hesitation. There was a glimmer of defiance. Perhaps a hope that charm, poise, or reputation could sway Martha's decision. But the cameras didn't lie. Every micro-expression, every subtle body movement was captured. Observers could almost see the internal struggle playing out in real time. The tension between desire and reality, between ambition and rebuke, between past status and present scrutiny, was electric. People watching on screens around the world were not just witnessing a celebrity moment. They were witnessing a collision of personas, each carrying decades of cultivated identity. In the midst of this, one question lingered. What did this encounter say about the nature of celebrity today? How does power manifest in moments so fleeting, yet so public? Martha Stewart, who had built an empire on control and expertise, wielded authority without needing to shout. Meghan, whose every action has been scrutinized since stepping into royalty, faced a public test she could neither rehearse nor prepare for fully. And the world watched. Not passively, but with an almost voyeuristic fascination, eager to see the outcome, to witness the resolution or the collapse of yet another high-profile encounter. Meanwhile, whispers began to circulate among the press corps and attendees. Some speculated that Martha's rebuke was personal, perhaps born of previous encounters or unspoken rivalries. Others suggested it was purely performative, a demonstration of authority meant to reinforce her status as a cultural icon. And yet, in the chaos of speculation, one thing was clear. This was a moment that would be remembered. A photograph, a headline, a viral clip, something that would immortalize the tension for audiences far beyond that single red carpet. The stakes were no longer merely about a photo. They were about perception, influence, and the fragile nature of public approval. By now, social media was ablaze. Clips circulated, reactions multiplied, and analysis began. Fans of Meghan rallied, criticizing Martha's apparent coldness. Admirers of Martha celebrated her assertiveness. The comment sections became battlegrounds, filled with debate, memes, and viral reactions. And for Meghan, the challenge extended beyond the red carpet. Every action she had taken in her life, every public appearance, every carefully curated image, seemed to converge in this single, crystallized moment. Would this encounter define her evening? Her reputation? Perhaps even her legacy in the eyes of the public? And then, just as quickly as it began, the immediate interaction seemed to resolve. Cameras moved, flashes continued, and the crowd began to shift its attention. But the tension didn't dissipate. Not for Meghan, not for Martha, not for the cameras, and certainly not for the millions of eyes watching around the world. Because in moments like these, what happens after the confrontation, the whispers, the unseen glances, the private reflections, is often more significant than the confrontation itself. Behind the public veneer, behind the polished smiles and composed gestures, lies a human story of ambition, ego, vulnerability, and the relentless pressure of living in a world where every glance is a statement, every word is a headline, and every interaction is immortalized. And so, as the city's lights twinkled against the night sky, as the red carpet slowly emptied and the flashes of cameras began to fade, one question hung in the air like a charged whisper. What happens next? Because this encounter was only the beginning. Behind the cameras, behind the headlines, behind the memes, there was a story that the public had yet to hear. A story of ambition, tension, power, and the unrelenting glare of fame. And what came next would change everything. and no one saw it coming. Have you ever walked into a room and felt all eyes on you, even when hundreds of strangers were there to celebrate the same thing? That was Meghan Markle as she stepped out of the sleek black SUV onto the red carpet of the Love Story premiere in New York City. The night was buzzing, the kind of buzz that makes your heart race even before you reach the crowd. Flashbulbs popped like fireworks, cameras swiveled in unison, and fans screamed from behind barriers, their faces lit with anticipation. But for Meghan, this wasn't just another premiere. This was a test, a high-stakes moment under the glare of public scrutiny. Every step she took, every flick of her hair, every tilt of her head was being cataloged, dissected, and interpreted. Could she command the moment? Could she own the carpet, the room, the narrative? Or would she stumble under the invisible weight of history and expectation? The moment she appeared, whispers spread through the crowd. Paparazzi immediately swiveled, their lenses hungry for a single perfect shot. Is she nervous? Someone asked. She seems different tonight, muttered another. Meghan's entrance was carefully orchestrated, a designer gown that flowed with the faintest breeze, hair perfectly arranged, makeup flawless. But the tension beneath the surface was palpable. There was a flicker in her eyes, a tension in her shoulders, something that screamed, I am not just here to be seen. I am here to matter. And in a city where everyone is competing for attention, that statement is not just bold, it's dangerous. Red carpets are not simply a parade of beauty and glamour. They are battlegrounds of perception. One misstep can become a viral scandal. One moment of hesitation can be dissected for weeks. Meghan knew this. She had lived her life in the relentless glare of cameras for years, first as an actress, then as a duchess, now as a former royal navigating a world that demanded she be both relatable and iconic. And yet, despite her experience, tonight carried a different weight. Because tonight, she was not just walking past photographers. She was walking toward Martha Stewart. As Meghan moved forward, the crowd shifted like a tide. Fans craned their necks to catch a glimpse. Cameras snapped in rapid-fire succession. Each step seemed to echo with anticipation. People whispered, she's going for the photo. She wants the shot. The tension wasn't just physical. It was emotional, almost cinematic in its intensity. Could anyone blame her for wanting this moment? After all, a single photograph at a premiere might seem trivial, but in the world of celebrity optics, a photograph can be a lifeline, a validation, a signal to the public that you belong. And for Meghan, belonging had always been complicated. Once embraced by royalty, now scrutinized by the media, every appearance was a test of relevance, charisma, and influence. Could she still capture the public's imagination in a city that never sleeps, never forgives, and never forgets? The energy of the crowd was electric, yet there was a subtle undercurrent of judgment. Every angle of her walk was being analyzed. Posture, stride, confidence. Meghan's gaze flicked briefly toward the cameras, offering the polite, practiced smile she had perfected over years. It was the smile that could charm politicians, soothe media critics, and disarm strangers. But tonight, behind that practiced expression, there was something else. Anticipation, maybe even anxiety. Was she bracing for confrontation? Was she hoping the night would go smoothly? Or did she already sense the storm gathering just steps ahead? And yet, despite all this, Meghan moved forward. Each step was deliberate, calculated, and yet filled with underlying tension. She smiled, nodded, and acknowledged fans along the route. But her gaze was fixed on one destination, Martha Stewart. The world seemed to slow, focusing on this inevitable collision. Cameras flashed, fans cheered, and assistants adjusted their movements to keep her safe and visible. It was a dance of precision and unpredictability, a choreography where one misstep could reverberate across social media, headlines, and public perception. Could Meghan capture that elusive moment? A photograph that would signify connection, respect, and recognition from someone whose approval carried weight far beyond the glitz of the evening? And then, as if sensing the approaching climax, the atmosphere shifted. You could almost hear a collective intake of breath. The red carpet, already charged with anticipation, seemed to pause. Fans leaned forward. Cameras hovered. The anticipation was palpable. The audience, both present and watching from screens worldwide, felt the tension in a way that made the city lights dim in comparison. Meghan was no longer just a woman walking a carpet. She had become a focal point of drama, a living story unfolding in real time, where power, perception, and reputation collided in a single, electric moment. And then the cameras finally framed the collision point. Martha Stewart, composed yet commanding, stood near the edge of the carpet. The moment of truth had arrived. Would Meghan's presence be welcomed or rebuffed? Would the photograph happen, or would this carefully orchestrated red carpet walk end in humiliation? The crowd, the media, and viewers at home all held their breath, waiting for a decision that would ripple across the celebrity world. And in that suspended moment, the energy was almost unbearable, electric, impossible to ignore. What happened next would set the tone for the rest of the night, and for Meghan's image in a city where reputation can be made or broken in an instant. The anticipation was suffocating. Every second stretched into an eternity. Every movement was amplified, every glance scrutinized. Could Meghan achieve the validation she sought, or was this the beginning of a very public rebuke? The cameras waited. The fans waited, and the world held its collective breath.